Okay, here we go, everybody. Welcome to Intent on this beautiful Monday the 15th. The sun is shining, finally. My God, I feel like I've been living in the nightmare of rain and cold and bitterness. And I mean, where are we now? We're in April, right? Oh my God, sorry. This keeps saying the link copied to clipboard. I'm like, yes, I know the link has copied to the clipboard. Thank you. Has it? Thank you. I was talking about the week. I was talking about the week being cold. I got ADHD'd with the link and then completely lost it. It's a beautiful morning. That's where I was actually starting with it. It's actually a beautiful morning. Welcome, beautiful people. It is so good to see you, research administrators. How are you doing today? What did you do this weekend? I stayed home. I played Skyrim on my Switch, and I watched a live streamer called Josh Strife Hayes play Fallout. So it was a very chill weekend. Which I kind of needed. It's been a really hectic last couple of months with, there was the cruise and there was FRA, PRA, and there's so many other things happening that it felt like I just kind of needed to stop and almost like reset before going into the next set of things, which is going to be, actually it's not that a lot. The next set of things for me is Region 1, where I am the keynote speaker. So that's going to be really exciting. We have some fun stuff to share with you today. So many fun things to share with you today. Hello to the few of you who are here. I can see you. I can see that there's 3 people. Oh, by the way, I have a TikTok. I know. I have a TikTok now. So if you're on TikTok, go look for me on TikTok. I actually, my lives that I used to do back in the day when many years ago, I loved those lives. They were very casual, very chill, but I did those on Periscope and on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore, so I'm kind of going live on TikTok for that kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes. But if you have a TikTok, come follow me on TikTok. It'll be fun. I have some fun stuff in there. You get to see the unfiltered, uncensored Vanessa. Believe it or not, this is still censored. Okay, so I have so many things to share with you today, and I decided to this week, smart way of doing it. I actually wrote the article for the end of the week. I wrote it already. And then that's sort of what our conversation is going to be about, because there's so many things that happen. I don't want to lose track of all of the important stuff. So I'm going to start, I'm going to actually go out of order of all the things. So first, I'm going to do a shameless plug. So keep an eye out on my LinkedIn, and if you're on the Res Admin mailing list, keep an eye out for that. Head over to Collaborate. These are all for the same thing, by the way. So I'm just letting you know the many different ways in which you can access the information I'm about to share with you. So I want to talk about AI for a little bit. AI is taking over everything in terms of the conversation. So when we were at FRA, PRA, we had there were quite a few actually sessions on how to use artificial intelligence, the regulations around that exist so far. What do we think is going to happen? What are the dangers, the concerns? What are some of the things we want to be looking at? Oh, did I check to see that I can hear myself? I don't think I checked that, by the way. Let me just check that. Yeah, okay, I can. That was what I was worried about. I realized suddenly, oh my God, I've done this before where and I have to make sure that I look at my screen to make sure I don't freeze when I make I'm not even going to say the word because it automatically does the camera freeze if I do it. So there's lots of conversation about artificial intelligence, and honestly, it's showing up in our day-to-day a lot anyway. So, even if you don't know that you're using it, a lot of the software that we utilize these days is already putting AI behind it to amplify the work that its engine can do. You definitely have the AI types where it's like ChatGPT, where I actually have to go to ChatGPT, type in some text, and ask it for a response. So it's very interactive, and that I am the one who is generating all of this text that's coming back at me, or graphics, videos, whatever. Like there's AI to generate just about anything, right? I enjoy using AI, but the thing is, and I dove right into it right away. And it's interesting because Syra and I have been having this conversation for, actually, we had this conversation at Region 1 last year, like on the drive on the way up. And then we had the conversation again. We have a conversation every time we're together, which is the idea of the pitfalls that exist with AI, the dangers of how it could be used, ethics, morals, right? Things like that just are things that we haven't, like, it's so new. We haven't even really delved into the depths of what we need to be delving into to have these conversations and to make sure that, like, it's being used safely. So anyway, so we know that all this is the case. And what was interesting, so I'm on the Collaborate committee for ERA. Okay, so we've done a few things about electronic research administration last year. This year, we wanted to do something on artificial intelligence. And as it turned out, there was actually a committee already set up for artificial intelligence. And so we're like, why don't we band together and kind of have this conversation together? Because there is an intersection and an Venn diagram there between our AI portion of things and then the ERA portion of things as AI starts to become more complex, as if it's not complex enough, and we start to find better ways of applying it. How are the ERA tools that we're using already going to leverage it in the background to improve the kind of service that we get from the software? So, what we all have these sessions that we've seen at NCURA. We've had conversations on the side, but one of the things that we actually have not done is there's not been like a giant survey that says, hey, how are you using research, AI? What do you think about it? How do you feel about it? And things like that. So we have a survey. The survey has been generated by the Collaborate committees for AI and ERA. Audrey has posted it in Collaborate. I'm going to share it in the Res Admin mailing list today. It's going to go up on my LinkedIn today. When you see it, if you're able to fill it out, great, please do. If you are not able to fill it out, please share it on your feed so that we can get the input from as many research administrators as we can. And then maybe you share it and 3 or 4 people in your feed end up filling it out and then they share it and so on, right? So that's really the goal, is to just kind of get it either shared or filled out or both, right? If you want to do both. So that would be really great, because I think that, whenever you get into a room with a lot of RAs, what's really fun is you have this conversation and then it's like, oh my God, dude, I hadn't thought of this. Or, oh my, you're doing it that way? That's so interesting. And we end up taking with us all of these incredibly valuable new ideas and tools and resources that you can really only get when you crowdsource us together, right? Like at these organizational events that we typically get to, right? We don't often have a chance to do that sort of just like on a day-to-day basis. And even a survey is the best we can do for this kind of environment right now where we're having this conversation. So it would be really, really great to be able to get as many people's feedback as we can, or any people's input as we can, so that we can start to get a picture of so in our industry, who's using AI? How are they using it? Are there, is it maybe, you might not be using it, but is your PI using it? Do you want to use it, right? Like some people want to use it, but they're afraid, like not afraid of like the AI, like the AI itself. They're just afraid that like, I don't know how to use it, right? So for example, when I started on TikTok, I was so afraid. Oh my God, my friend, my friend, the real Slim Sherry, she's been on TikTok for ages. She's like got millions of followers. So she's been doing this forever, right? She was like, Vanessa, you've been doing this for a decade. What is up? And she was like, Sherry, I don't know what's up with me. And my friend Roxanne, same thing. She's like, we came up in the marketing world together, and she was like, what is happening with you? It's like, I don't know. I'm just scared. So even if, you're the most badass person in the whole world, you may still be afraid of AI. Stuff happens, right? So I'd love to hear about that too. So please fill out the survey or share it with your community members so that they can fill it out. And let's see what we all know about AI. Okay. That is great. And you know what I just realized? Hold on, let's go see here. There, you were able to comment if you want. You know, now it's really interesting. I've gone live in many different places over the years, and depending on which platform you're on, the people comment or so on is very depends. So I always like to just sort of say, if you want to join in the conversation, I do not have to be a talking head. Like at any point in time, if you're like, oh my God, AI terrifies me, dude, tell me that. Tell me that you're terrified of AI. Don't let me feel like I'm the only person afraid of TikTok. I'm not actually afraid of TikTok anymore. I have made TikTok my you-know-what. I'm just saying. Okay, let's talk about something else exciting now. The final reveal of the Uniform Guidance to CFR 200 edition. That's my new hit song. So Gil Tran and Attain Partners are doing a webinar on April 24th. My teleprompter is broken, so I have to look down here. And it's going to be all about the extreme makeover of the Uniform Guidance. So basically, they're going to go down the list of the things the changes that impact us that matter, because I pulled down the whole 650-page document. My God, it's like a nightmare. I mean, it's double spaced, so technically it's probably only 324. But it was a lot. It was a lot. And then after going through it, I found like 2 pages in a summary document that I was like, this is really all I needed. So I'm really looking forward to Gil Tran's session. He did one in FRA PRA that was absolutely amazing. If you haven't seen him speak before, absolutely worth it. I have already registered. I will be putting the link in the description, in the follow-up notes, and then I'll also post about it in a couple of days on my LinkedIn, just so that you have access to it. So I'll post it so that you're like, oh, hey, this is the link to it. Sign up for it. It'll be great. He'll talk about the major revisions to the final publication, how the revisions are going to impact the administration of grants, the ones going in the future, and then the ones that we already have, and then what are some of the strategies and timelines for implementation. We already know that some of these things are going to be in effect for the January 25th, after January 25th, 2025. So we know that a lot of these things are going to be in effect fairly soon, so relatively soon in research administrative terms. So I think it's a great idea to get on one of these calls. I know that NCURA is doing one, but that's paid. And to be honest, like, you can watch this one for free. So I would just watch it for free. And then Gil and his team are going to be doing a Q&A afterwards for 15 minutes. So that'll be super, super great. What I am really excited about, if you watched my intent last week, then you know that I sat on an hour-long webinar from the end. I don't know who actually ran it, the White House maybe. And the actual description of the event, and I went back and checked on this, said that it was going to be telling us all about the uniform guidance and all the changes, and it was all very exciting. And it basically was an hour of people congratulating each other that could have been an email. And so I was a little disappointed by it. And maybe I should have expected this, like we've all been on those calls before where you're just like, oh my God, seriously, Jackie, stop thanking John and Jim. And I don't know why everybody's names begin with a J. But the ADHD minute, give me a sec. Gil's session will help us figure out what it is that we actually need to know so that we are prepared for the grants that are upcoming. So that's going to be really, really exciting. There's also a couple of links that are included that I'll include in the wrap up, which I typically do because these conversations in Monday morning is really just to sort of like be like, hey, these are the things that are happening this week. These are the things you want to know about. And then I can wrap it up sort of over the course of the week with links and descriptions and so on, because not everybody has time to listen to all of this, but the information is still useful. So I kind of put it in the newsletter to make life easier. Okay. So make sure that you register for that. It is on April 24th. It will be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It is called the Final Reveal Extreme Makeover Uniform Guidance to CFR 200 Edition. If you go to Attain's website, it's there. If you follow them on LinkedIn, you can register for that there. If you're on their mailing list, then they will have sent it to you. So it is, and make sure you find it if it ended up in your spam. I have Attain marked as one of my favorites because I love them. So make sure that you go there, and then afterwards, maybe we can talk about it and see what we learned. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. So interesting thing. So if you're in region 1, so this is something super interesting. So if you're in Region 1, you may have seen that there is a vacancy for the chair-elect position. So if anybody wants to run for that, that's really cool. The reason why I wanted to bring this up, though, is because I was actually interested in applying for the chair-elect position because I thought it'd be really fun. It'd be really cool. It would be a great way to contribute to the future of NCURA. But I found out that if you're a consultant, you are not allowed to apply for that role, which kind of sucks. But like the reason that was given was that, they don't want consultants to be leveraging the position to get, what's the word, to get business, right? Which I can totally understand. And it would be really unfortunate if somebody tried to do that, but I understand that there is a fear and that might be what somebody wants to do. Obviously that wasn't my intent, but anyway. The one thing, though, that I wanted to kind of highlight for anyone who is in any region is that take a look at your bylaws, because I was curious about how elections happen, because I've nominated someone a couple of times who's never shown up on the ballot. And so I was really curious about that. So I went and I looked it up, and as it turns out, no matter how many people get nominated, there's like a committee that selects the person who goes on the ballot so that we get the ballot, but there's only one name on it. So, and that one name is selected by this select group, and I'm not entirely sure who the select group is. And then like maybe they're the advisory board, and then like they go through their committee process or whatever it is. And I'm not sure what that process is. I don't know that it's published anywhere in terms of how they're making that determination. Anyway, and then one name is put on the email ballot or whatever email it is that we get, and then you just nominate for that one person. So essentially like it's almost like a succession plan. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not succession. It's appointed. You're appointing people, right? As opposed to voting. So I believe that there are some bylaws that are up for review right now. And so if you're in any of the areas where they're looking at the bylaws again, I want to recommend that you talk to your governance committee, find out when the bylaws are being updated, ask about how that is being done in your region. Because I'll be really honest, like I wasn't too, even if it's not me, that's fine. Like I love all of our presidents. So don't get me wrong here. Like I am 100% on board. But I don't necessarily know that this is the democratic process that we think it is. And so I feel like that's something that we sort of want to be looking at for any organization. I mean, that is going to have a leadership that is elected by the membership. So I'm not going to be running for chair-elect, everyone. Sorry. I know, crushing disappointment for everyone. But if you are interested in running for chair-elect, I strongly recommend, so if you are interested in running for chair-elect, or if you have insight or thoughts about the nomination process, then you can email governance@ncuraregion1.org. This is also going to be in the wrap up at the end of the week. And this is Monday mornings may be happy, everyone, but they are definitely not my most streamlined hour of the day. You get to see me in all my glory. Okay, so what I would recommend is if you have somebody in your region, well, we're in Region 1 and we're taking nominations for the chair-elect. So if you have someone you want to nominate the hell out of them, people. Nominate. Get them on. You have until, I believe, May 1st. And then there's an email that went out from Region 1, which has a link to the administrative policies that kind of outline how people are picked, what your responsibilities will be, so on and so forth, and instructions for how to nominate someone else or nominate someone. So if you have someone you want to nominate, I strongly recommend you nominate them. And that's it. But more important than nominating, I do think that looking at how our elections are done is something that is like, because I didn't understand how they were done until I started looking into this and being like, oh, okay. And I was like, wow, that's really weird. Because why would we look into that, right? Like, it's not something that I have on my day-to-day. So if that is something that you are interested in, definitely take a look and see how you can contribute. I think it would be fabulous. Okay. Speaking of NCURA, one thing that I wanted to recommend is that before we dive into horror stories from grants offices, dun, 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 I wish I got some horror music here. NCURA's YouTube Tuesday this week is so good. It's about a topic that is really near and dear to Syra's and my heart, so I wanted to highlight it. It's from Laura Kingsley at the University of Pittsburgh, and she's talking about how you prepare for post-award during the pre-award phase, which is, such a delicious topic. Oh my God, so delicious. Because, one of the conversations that Syra and I love having, research administration geeking out, right, is how like, because we see the benefit of having pre and post separate, like why you would do that. And we've been in organizations where it is that way, right? But at the same time, we also can see how when you are part of the pre-award process and then you move it into post-award, you can see how all these things kind of fit together, and it creates like a different kind of relationship with the project than it does if you are pre and post. More importantly, it allows you to sort of see the relationship between the pre-planning and the post-award spending and compliance, so that you can say, oh my God, if I had done this during this submission, it would make my life so much easier next time around. But if you're only pre, you don't necessarily know how some of the actions of the submission are trickling down into the post-award space. And then if you're post, you may not necessarily be thinking, or in actually, I know how I would have thought of it. I would have been like, oh my God, this is set up in such a mess. I wish they knew blah, 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 without ever telling them blah, 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 right? So now in my mind, I'm wishing that they just read my mind, right? And I myself have been on the pre-award side where I was probably the person who did that to someone on post-award. So this isn't like calling out pre or post. This is, I think, an interesting relationship and intersection of skill sets and expertise areas. So it's a great video. Definitely take a look at that. All right. Now, let's talk about some horror stories. Okay, so this is actually really interesting and also really important. I want to give this to you because you may have already seen it, but it's a really powerful tool to use when we have investigators who may be hesitant or resistant to putting their final reports in on time, or maybe are not as responsive as we would like. We all have had investigators who are on top of their stuff, and like, you just know you don't need to worry about them because they understand their role as the business managers of the research, right? That they need to do the reports and so on. But we've also had investigators who will hedge and hem and haw and not submit, or do, they don't do the thing. And then it can create problems later on. So just recently, the NIH, the Office of Naval Research, and the DoD, the U.S. Army, has temporarily halted all grants to the University of California at San Diego. Okay, so UC San Diego has temporarily had their grants halted. This is from the 10th of April, so things may have changed, because obviously when you start losing access to some of your grants, panic sets in and you got to solve these problems. This had to do with one scientist, and actually the situation was like, I can see how this would happen. The scientist left, he like 2 years ago, I think, and he just never filed his final reports, and he thought the university would take care of it. I don't know what the university was doing, probably emailing him 800 times, and he did not see the email, or it went to spam or whatever, because we've all had many different types of experiences in this situation where we remind people and they're like, what? You never told me. Or we remind people and it goes to spam or whatever. But in either case, he never actually finished his final reports, right? And so now, UC San Diego is a giant school. They manage over 700 million in grants. And so now they have problems, right? Now, one would hope that they already did a drawdown right before this happened. But now they have to go and resolve all this. But here's the thing. It's one investigator, right? One investigator did it, and the whole institution is paying the price because the institution is the recipient of the awards, right? Now, we know that, but a lot of the PIs don't necessarily know that. I've actually had to have that conversation with newer investigators who don't necessarily recognize that when the NIH awards a grant, they're awarding it to the organization, and the PI is the PI, and that we have to relinquish it, that the PI can't simply just take it. And in some cases, can't remember when this was. This was like 5 years ago, maybe. It was where there was and it happens sometimes where the grant actually stays at the institution, right? It doesn't go. They just replace the PI. It's rare, but it happens. This is a really good cautionary tale. And so the link will, of course, be in the wrap up so that you can share that with your investigators or just keep it in your library for a time when you need it. Because nothing will spur action more than being told that this is going to have a consequence and this is the consequence, right? Because I think a lot of PIs don't think that there is going to be a consequence because truthfully, for many years, sometimes there wasn't, right? And so it's kind of hard to say, well, look, this is what's going to happen when not everybody has to pay a price, right? So when we have these cautionary tales to share, it's important to use them because it makes it so that we don't have as many cautionary tales to share, right? So that is like wicked exciting. Okay. So we have a very, very exciting thing today. So I got my first letter. All right. This is honestly was like the highlight of my life. I got a comment once before and I made a whole video on it, managing up, managing down. And now I got my first letter, basically, "Dear Vanessa, can you help me with this?" And so I was like, oh my God, I absolutely can. This is so fun. So the letter was basically, it's anonymous. So the letter was basically that there is someone who is looking to leave their research administration position. And it's been a while since they've actually been looking for a job, but something's come up and they are excited to apply. But again, so I basically sent this person a response, but I wanted to actually give a longer response today because I actually see this comment a lot. And this is a conversation that I've heard happen all over, right? So this is something that people are asking anyway. And since somebody asked me, I was like, oh my God, I got a letter. Yes, of course I'll do this. Let's talk about resume length. You want to keep your resume. It's still the case that you want to keep your resume to under 2 pages. The way to typically do that for somebody who's got like many, many, many years of experience is in many different places, or if your resume is just really, really long, is to limit the amount of volunteer experience that you put on there. So like keep your, you can say that I've extensively volunteered and then just put some of your highlighted volunteer positions that are relevant to the position. For example, as a research administrator, your NCURA work might be relevant, but your 20 years of experience as the lead basketball coach for the varsity team may not necessarily be relevant unless you're applying to a college where that's a relevant thing. You may also want to consider non-relevant experience. So, I have a whole section in my resume and I'm happy to share my resume with anybody who wants to see it to be like, oh, what can I mine? What can I pull? I'm a big believer in mine from what you can, because there's no reason to recreate the wheel. But you can, and not that my resume is the best in the whole universe, but it gives you a general idea. You can remove some of the ones that are non-relevant. So for example, my help desk, the fact that I have great customer service, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? That bleeds throughout my career, right? So every single one of my jobs has been customer service oriented, right? So the fact that I was help desk at Emerson College when I was 21 or actually 24, is not super relevant at that stage, right? So you can put those in there. So I'd recommend like kind of shortening it that way. Another thing to do would be to keep in mind that your resume is only one part of your applying to a job. Like for many, let's put it this way. Your resume may only want to be one part of you applying for a job, right? So, in the old days, the way that we knew remember the old days, everybody? Where I had a resume, I gave the resume to my friend Jim. Jim gives my resume to her friend Alia, and Alia says, yeah, you know what, I want to talk to Vanessa, right? But they know me through somebody. Or they may, like we had the newspaper where you'd look in the newspaper, right? Or, what is the other thing? Where you would just apply online. You just even more recently, you just apply online on Indeed and whatnot. And then people do like your Facebook search and the Google search and so on, right? That is one way of getting a job. But what I'm finding more and more, especially in research administration, is that because of the amount of volume in terms of jobs that are available, you can apply for just about anything that you want to. There's huge opportunity out there. But I think that in order to make sure that you're not jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, right? So like in some cases, we're leaving an unhealthy, unhappy situation into an environment that we hope will be a happier, healthier situation. Other cases, we're in a situation that we're like, I don't necessarily want to leave my job, but another job comes up, right? In all of those situations, you want to make sure that whatever place it is that you go to is primed to receive you as the employee, right? So back in the day where there were less jobs, more research administrators, it made sense for the power differential that existed to be that there's a job and we're all vying for it, right? In research administration, because of the volume of options that are out there and because of how the trends are going, what we're going to find is that there's more jobs than there are people, and the people feel empowered to leave jobs that they don't like. And so more people are updating their resumes and sprucing things up and checking out their LinkedIn. So in this era, what you want to be doing is also keeping your LinkedIn primed. And the reason why you want to keep your LinkedIn primed is because part of changing the power differential between I'm applying for a job that you have, please give it to me, right? Which is how I've always gone to any jobs, even at my highest and most confident. That's how I've always gone to jobs, right? And it's hard to break out of that. It's easier now for me where I recognize I bring a lot of skills to the table that not everybody does. But for me to do that, what I had to do to get to the point where I was like, oh, I understand now what I offer an organization. I had to actually do my LinkedIn. And doing my LinkedIn allowed me to figure out who I wanted to show, right, to the world. So now all y'all see this, you know what you're getting with me right off the bat, right? And anyone on LinkedIn who shares and talks and has a profile, you know what you're getting from them. You know what their strengths are. You know what they think their strengths are. You know whether they're funny, whether they are inclusive, whatever it is, right? What kind of organization are you trying to build? And then us as the employees to be, what kind of organizations do we want to be a part of, right? And so one of the challenges that exists and why people are bouncing from organization to organization is because the organizations we're going to are not filling the needs that we have as employees. If they did, then we wouldn't have a reason to leave, right? So the question is, how can we get organizations that are not good fits for us to self-select out so that we don't waste our times on them and they don't waste their time on us, right? It's basically like LinkedIn is sort of like making sure that you're using, I'm going to date myself now, Match.com, right? So that everybody who is we're not going to be aligned together, we can sort of like move on. And then now we're finding that, okay, you and I will work really well together. What can we do? So having a LinkedIn is really, really powerful because it allows people to get to know you and they get to know what you're capable of and you get to see what they're capable of. The other thing to keep in mind about LinkedIn, and this is actually really interesting, is that everybody's marketing to everybody else now, right? So like if I say I'm applying to Harvard, Harvard's been around for like 300 years. There's so much marketing for Harvard out there. We know who Harvard is. At this point, you know who I am, but that's because you've seen me, my face, my product meaning any content that I create or things like that. At least 15 times you have already seen me. So at this point, you know who I am, right? If you've only seen me 4 or 5 times, then it's going to take some people will dive right in, but for the most part, it's going to take another 10 times of you seeing my content for you to really be sort of like, okay, Manessa's one of the people that I follow. Between 1 and 15 is the time where you are blocking me, unfollowing me, deciding that you're not interested in what I have to say, just not engaging with my content and slowly watching me fade away into the past, or deciding I'm not right for whatever opportunity it is that exists, right? That's really why we do LinkedIn. It's to make sure that we're really building a robust community of people who, when we are ready for a position or a job, we can then say, hey, listen, I am available to work. In the old days, and for many of us who are Gen X and Boomer, we were conditioned to not do that kind of thing, to not post and say, hey, I'm looking for work. Hey, I'm doing X. Hey, I'm doing Y. Don't brag about what you're doing and don't ask for help, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The most important thing I can say about that is that it's impossible for you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And the actual saying is to denote something that is not possible. I think it's no more likely to pull yourself up by the bootstraps than it is for you to lift yourself up off your chair with your hands or something like that. But it's basically meant to talk about a task that is impossible to do. And so the ideas that a lot of us brought with us into job hunting do not serve us now. So one of the other things that I wanted to recommend is if you are someone who's looking for a job, spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn coach that Miranda Von Fricken. Yes, that is her real name, Miranda Von Fricken. Amazing name. She's fabulous. She helped me with mine. She has giant pink everything. She's wonderful. There's also Leah Turner, also a great LinkedIn enthusiast and coach. Those are 2 great people to follow. And then I'd recommend checking out Dorothy Mashburn. Dorothy Mashburn actually comes at it from a different angle. Dorothy Mashburn comes at it from an angle of how do you build your resume, your almost like your persona as you're going into for negotiations and salaries and jobs and so on, to make sure that you get the maximum amount of money that you are entitled to as that employee. So those are the areas that I would recommend. So for your resume, 1 to 2 pages. That's the sort of the answer, the general answer. But this is the longer answer in terms of, I assume that if you're working on your resume, you are trying to either just stay on top of the game or you are actively looking for something. In either case, those two activities will really help enormously. And it's actually not a lot of work to sort of maintain your LinkedIn and just kind of do it. And I'd be happy. You can send me an email and we can sort of talk about it. But what it does, it pays off in dividends, because then when you are ready, so like say 2 years down the road, you're like, hey, I want to run for chair-elect of NCURA. You've already got this giant community of people on LinkedIn that now you can just leverage and you can mobilize, right? As opposed to now having to start to build your community when you have already decided that you want to do that thing. Or when you go in to apply for a director position, they're going to look you up on LinkedIn. You already know what they're going to find. So it's all good, right? And my LinkedIn's going to sell me. My LinkedIn is not going to be blank, right? So these are the things that if you do them now, when the time comes that you actually need them, you're like, oh, hey, this is great. I'm so happy. Alrighty, everybody. We have had a giant, look at that, 41. I'm wondering, I actually realized I was in my thing. Okay, great. All right, so this has been a fabulous, fabulous morning. I'm going to finish up this whole wrap up. I keep calling it a letter. It's not really a letter. It's a newsletter. And get that out to you all in the next couple of days. But in the meantime, if you are looking for help with LinkedIn, feel free, drop me a line. We can talk about it. And then if you are looking for a job, also drop me a line. I know a lot of people who are looking for people all over the places. And don't forget to join the Res Admin mailing list, because the opportunities there are incredible. Remember, people, you don't have to settle for any job, because literally, you are the most incredible job in the world is research administrators. Incredible. I love this job more than anything. I've been doing it for 25 years. There are so many great opportunities out there. So make sure that you are updating your LinkedIn and your resume so that you can take advantage of them. Awesome. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.